Hi, I'm Bex Campbell,
And I'm Neva Parker.
And I'm Tomas Evangelista.
and this is our Own Heroes podcast, where we talk about everyday people doing cool stuff, people who showed up to be their own hero. Welcome.
All right. So how was everybody's week?
I had a pretty good week. It was difficult. Yeah. I just had to get away from all the noise and everything that's going on, just because there's so much going on around the world and in our country. Also some local stuff. So I just kind of laid low, and I had to recharge because I know there's so much that's going to happen in the next few months, this next year. I'm also just kind of trying to figure out like my life a little bit, and what I mean by that is my I do work. I have my own business, but that's slowed down a little bit, so I've had to find other ways to make an income. So figuring out that a bit also took some time, and I just felt like I just needed to shut down for a little bit. I had some people reach out to me, which of course makes you feel good that when you are in some of these spaces that others notice and they care about you. You know, like, hey, how's it going? I didn't see you here. I thought that was really nice, and
yeah.
I think I texted you two when the first one happened, and then by the end of the day there was 3. And I was like, wow, okay, that's really cool. People are concerned, not concerned about me, but they care about me enough to check in to see if I'm doing well. So that was really nice.
That is nice.
You probably, if you're listening, thank you for reaching out, and I'm good. Just you'll see more from me in these next few weeks.
I get that totally. Yeah. For folks who don't know, I like to lift weights. I like to pick up heavy things and put them back down. So I hurt myself like 2 weeks ago at the gym.
Say.
Yeah, it's one of those things like, how much can you talk about weightlifting without driving people nuts? I already talked way too much about my protein intake.
But you forget who I married.
Oh.
The business that we had, which was Sports Nutrition. For anybody who's out there, we owned a business. My husband ran it. Maximum Nutrition. It was first to Max Muscle.
Okay.
So I'm happy to hear whatever you got to say. And I think
I have a degree in kinesiology. So I studied some of this stuff. Don't call myself an expert, but I know a bit. So it's a topic that I think is normal for us.
All right, well, fair. Okay, so yeah, I hurt myself. I was doing like a combo of assisted pull-ups, like with the band under my foot, and then push-ups, like rotating between those two. And I did something to my traps in between my shoulder blade and my neck area. And I hurt myself at the gym regularly. Fun. That is part of weightlifting. But I am not recovering. It's really frustrating. So it's been a thing for like 2 weeks now. So I haven't been in the gym, which means I'm crabby. Oh my God.
You haven't been.
No. I mean, I'm going and doing like light cardio, but anytime I'm turning my neck, like, head side to side, ouch. So yeah.
You probably get that checked out. You might have done something.
I had a massage today, which was awesome. And it helped a bit, but yeah, I'm not really sure. It's hard to stretch it even because that hurts. I don't know. Anyways, so yes, no gym, crabby lady. Here I am.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, I did do the grants commission stuff. So we had our grants awarding meeting where we go through the grants, and that was really hard. That's really rough. There's some great, so many great things, people do in this community and work hard for a lot of folks. And last year we had more money and this year we have less. And it's like, that was heartbreaking to have to tell people no, but
yeah.
So that was, a rough thing on Tuesday, but that was the week.
Yeah.
How's the world, man?
Oh my gosh, the world's on fire. Don't look at it. That's what I've been doing. Oh my God.
And
it's not entirely true, but I will sort of advocate for moderated content intake of the news and what is happening, because it is all a dumpster fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I
It's
don't think
also
that's
kind of
anything to do.
challenging,
Yeah.
just because, and I'll say this, we need to pay some attention, and we
Mm,
need to notice these things, because it's a balancing act, like having to listen and know about what's going on, because for some people their lives actually might be falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
There might be getting sent to this country that they don't know. They're being deported, different country, being held. They are going through something that's unimaginable. Um, and so, like, what do? Like, you do you listen? Do you know about it? And it's so hard, but also at the same time, like, you're trying to uh, improve your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing about these things as a human being is horrible.
Yeah.
You realize that this is going on. So there's no really right answer, and I don't want to shame anyone for looking away, because I did a little bit of that myself recently. But I think we just need to kind of find a way to moderate it, and then also realize that sometimes people feel like I need to be doing more, and there's always, of course, more that people can do, but should we? And is this one thing that's going to there needs to be more people doing more things, and so that it doesn't fall on just one person or a few people.
Yeah.
So at the same time, like, we also need to make sure that we're doing a little bit enough, and also having others join in on some efforts, so that we're able to collectively do something. And yeah, if that takes sharing something, going to a protest, if that takes writing to your representative, sharing with other family members on what's going on, maybe even getting on social media and fighting some of these trolls, or getting some information out there that's more accurate, because it's a little bit of all of the above.
Yeah.
But also taking care of ourselves as well.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, that's an excellent thing. The finding the balance between taking in the information, because we do have to look, right? We have to know, especially when, I mean, human rights violations are like just running rampant right now, and it's terrifying, because there's no separation between like any one of us and any one of the people who's being violated. We're all
Right.
people, like it could be anybody. And so for sure you have to, and of course, if we all look away, then I mean, I don't even know how you would look away
Right.
entirely. Um, yeah, it's really difficult right now, and I think everybody's trying to find that balance in their own lives. How do you show up for everybody and also for yourself at the same time? I don't have the answer either. Um, it's
And I
difficult.
think, it's important to mention some of this is by design. They want us to feel overwhelmed. They want us to be, I guess, desensitized to what's going on. Um, and so I feel like we need to first just acknowledge it, and just also realize that this is by design, and that we need to find a way around it. But I'm grateful for the community that I'm in, and for everybody that I'm noticing and seeing doing something, showing up to certain events, rallies, things that are being put on in the community. Like, seeing the amount of people, I think the last week or so, show up in Auburn and Roseville
Mm-hmm.
and in other areas to protest, to be out there. I think that was super encouraging for me. Like, I even though I wasn't there, like, I did feel some sense of, wow, look at all these people in my community that
Mm-hmm.
are just worried for others, and that are there to show their frustration, their anger. And that's a right that we all have to, that should always be where we can assemble and peacefully protest whatever's going on. And I thought that was really cool. That's what we saw, I think, last weekend, a week from now. um and that was really encouraging for me.
That's awesome. I'm going to jump in right here and really quick say, so folks, for those of the people who are listening, we took feedback from our first couple episodes and people requested some structure to our episodes and some segments. And I feel like we're talking about one of the things that we were hoping to talk about today, just naturally. And so, like, a question that we posed was, how do you fortify yourself against feeling powerless? Like, what do you do to help prevent that? And I feel like that's exactly what we're talking about right now. So I wanted to just give some context to this conversation and continue.
I have some resiliency that I've noticed that keep going forward. Like, everything is going to be okay when things don't go the way that we expect them to, or when we fail at some things. But when I'm being told that I can't do this, can't do that, I look back at my family, because I am an immigrant. My family came from Mexico. When we came to this country, there were all these challenges, and I think talked about them a little bit in previous episodes. But when I look back at how far we've come and where we came from, like, I realize, oh my God, like, shit, we've done so much, and going forward I think is much easier now. We've laid down roots here in Placer County. We've grown so much as a family. I've completed some goals that I've had with a degree. We're doing very well how we were when we were kids. And so that, to me, that reminder of how far we've come, and also what our families have done for us, is a way for me to kind of just keep me moving forward. And when I'm hearing somebody that's telling me you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that, and that's not possible, I am reminded that yes, it's possible, and we will be doing this. And we may not get it the first time or the second time, but the third time will be the time. And I think it's just also something that, for me specifically, has been ingrained, is you are breaking down walls, and you're going into spaces where I may be the first one in my family, and so keep going. That's kind of how I am reminded and fortify myself against all these other people that are telling me not to.
Are you ever does it ever go into your head? I'm just realizing it now, like the question, if somebody, sort of comes at you and says, you can't do this, or that's not for you, or whatever. Does it ever go through your head, like, well, who the hell are you to tell me that? Like, who are you? I mean, does that ever go through your head? And I bring that up because, I think for some people it kind of doesn't. Like, it's not, I mean, if you're and I'm not saying that it doesn't. I'm just saying that, well, I did say that, but I think what I'm trying to say very poorly is that it takes a while for somebody to, like, I think it takes a long time of constant, like, beat downs for somebody to finally say, well, what the hell are you?
Right.
Maybe somebody says it right off the bat. I don't even know. I'm making this up, but
no, I understand what you're saying. I mean, I think I should also acknowledge that I'm a man, and I am, in this world. I notice that the challenges this are not the same as, like, what women have gone through, and so there's that element too that's added to that. But at the same time, like, you're right, like, when someone tells me something, unless it's somebody that, like, is very important to me, that I really care about, like, everyone else is just, who are you? Like, I don't care who you are, what title you hold. If you're telling me that I can't do something that I feel strongly about, or that anybody else is able to, of course I'm not talking about anything where you're hurting other people or breaking, like, any major laws or anything, but when it comes to goals and things that I want to go into, if someone tells me you can't do that, like, who are you? Like, and that does go through my head, and probably subconsciously, like, I don't think I think too much about it, but I tune it out. Like, I do my best to just not even worry about that person's opinion. I mean, you hear all these things, and it's much easier to be said behind a computer screen or a cell phone, because you, it's much, I see it more in like comments on social media. There's been something on videos, especially when you're getting into some political topics. Like there's some people that really say some nasty things. And yeah, I don't know who they are, and it doesn't matter to me, and we just need to move forward.
Yeah.
I'm remembering this comedian that I love, Angela Johnson, and she has this line that she's kind of famous for where she's like, say I won't. Say I won't. Like where she like that's like anytime people tell her she won't, she's like, say I won't. Because it's basically like, dare me to, I will.
Exactly. Yeah.
I always like that always hit for me because I feel like that sounds right for my personality. Like I think of my mom says I kind of came out like, fiery and with attitude and like I'm gonna do it. Okay.
I love
I'm
it.
and so I always think about that. Like to some extent, I think there's personal grit. Like when you fortify yourself against what other people are going to say, there's an amount of, inner monologue, self-talk where you're just like, people are going to say some stuff and that's fine. I'm going to do what makes sense to me anyways. But anytime I'm feeling like extraordinarily helpless, like if I reflect back on my own life experience, anytime that I've felt like pretty broken or like I don't know what I'm going to do next, I don't have, because normally I got ideas, like give me a problem, I'll come up with something. But anytime, and I've surely been there, where I'm overwhelmed by the totality of the experience, I look to my family. I mean, honestly, I fortify myself with the people that I love that have always shown up for me. And that there's something kind of, I feel like that's sort of what is being spoken about all around us now is this incredible importance of community, because I think community and family are basically the same. I mean, I guess it depends on your technical definition, but to me, the people that you share values with, share time with, share passions, life experiences, those are your people, right? Like maybe that's just a better way to call it. Like these are my people.
Yeah.
And so anytime that I've ever been really broken down and thought, oh, I don't know, I feel completely powerless, I have no ideas, I don't know how to dig in on that grit that I have, I don't know what to do next, that's what I do. That's where I go. I'm like, okay, help, somebody help. Help me. So yeah, I think there are a lot of ways. I really think it depends on your personality, your personal experience, and then just how many things are coming at you. Being able to fortify yourself like if you like any fortress, anything that's like taking a lot of hits. I mean, some things can only take so many hits, right? And it's hard. It's really hard. I feel like we should acknowledge, especially right now, like we've already been talking about the state of things in our country. It is hard to keep taking the hits. I think that's why we're seeing so many people who are just like raging and crying out and just, beside themselves, not knowing what to do, because you can only take so many hits before you're just overwhelmed.
Go ahead, Thomas.
And I think thanks, and I think that's why maybe another way of fortifying yourself is to go in, like instead of seeking others, like you mentioned, family, friends. If you don't have family that's supportive in any way, because some people don't, your friends might be away, but also it's just taking some time to recharge and getting away from that for a moment so that you can fortify yourself, and stepping away from it might be the solution to do that. So I like how you're mentioning that, and I totally agree.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually really glad you asked this question because, I think like right now with everything going on in the world, it's a good question. And as I dissect it, I'm realizing something that I do, and I did it with a campaign. I do it with a lot of things, is I think about like the absolute worst it could possibly be. I'm not a person that could be, I understand the power of positive thinking, but you've got to know where you're at and what your situation is before you can do anything about it. And if you can't acknowledge like the really like dire circumstances you're in, or if you can't acknowledge that, maybe I am powerless right now, you won't be able to find your power if you can't acknowledge. And I have personal experience from that. That's like, okay, just like the campaign. I mean, we've talked about this before, but just like the campaign, realizing like you're powerless at this point to potentially like to win. So what do you do now? You know, and acknowledging the worst and accepting the worst helps you be able, I think, to build your game plan and build maybe your resiliency to what that inevitability or not inevitability, but whatever that worst case scenario is, at least helps build the resiliency because you've acknowledged it and said it's something that exists and I'm strong enough to handle it. And so you can tell me all you want about how powerless I am. You cannot tell me anything I don't already know. And you can't surprise me. You can't make me feel bad. And maybe that's just a thing that I've always done. Is the joke kind of growing up was like, if I did something wrong, like I was going to punish myself more in my head than anybody was going to punish me. Like I was going to, that's sort of my thing. And so, you know, I was really hard on myself. So it's, you know, so anyways, I think maybe one way you can fortify yourself is just really, and it's not, it's not the best way, but, you know, I think it is a good way of just acknowledging that this is the situation you're in. Now, that doesn't answer the question of if somebody's telling you that and you really aren't powerless, you know, that's a different situation. But there are times when, you know, you don't necessarily have any control over the situation and you can't do anything about it. How do you handle that then? So, and that's my way of doing
what
it.
that reminds me of, and that's a good point, Neva, to sometimes mention, to acknowledge the situation you're in, to because that's kind of how you get out of it, is first acknowledging it and then finding a way to do what you need to do in order to get out of that. But that just reminds me, have you guys seen the movie 8 Mile?
Of course.
I haven't seen it. No.
You haven't seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay. Oh
well,
my!
I might spoil it a little bit for you if you don't mind.
I think it's all good. It's fine.
Okay.
We know Eminem, right? I mean, I know what generally speaking what it's about. Yeah, it's all good.
It just reminds me of the scene where Eminem is doing the final rap battle, and he's rapping the guy. And I guess you got to know that in the beginning he does choke. He doesn't rap because he just doesn't know what to say. But at the end, he ends up rapping about himself and all the bad things, like I am white trash, I am this, I am that. And obviously he does it in a way that sounds really good. But at the end, like he's acknowledging all these things to take power away from the other guy, to say those things about him. And in the end, the other guy doesn't have anything to say because he's already said all the things, all the jokes and all the things that could be said about himself. And he wins the rap battle because the guy chokes and doesn't say anything about him. So it just reminded me a little bit about that scene, and you should definitely go watch that movie after this.
Okay, I'll go do it.
Well, I mean, didn't you ever wonder where the song "Lose Yourself" came from?
No, I knew where it came from.
Oh, okay.
I just never watched the movie. Like, I think because I don't know. I feel like the story is well reported, so I just didn't want to sit through it. That's probably why. I don't know why.
That's so funny.
Anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's like I just feel like like what's maybe. I mean, there's no answers. Everybody's different in how they do this, and in the ways in which folks come at you and tell you that you're powerless. And I mean, if we're gonna talk about the world now, I mean, with everything going on, we don't have the ability to do much. Like, and okay, just for everybody out there, I can be a little dark sometimes. I can be a little pessimistic, and that one in the group. So, but I don't mean to be that way, and I guess maybe that's the way that I function. But
I think it's good to have different perspectives on things, because surely people out in our listening audience will relate. And I think we are all very dynamic people who have a range of emotions pending the day. So I think it's good to acknowledge the times when we get dark, because that's real. That's life.
No, it's awful.
It's often.
It can be anyways, but
Well, I
yeah,
hope people who are listening think about like the ways that they can fortify themselves, because I think that the next couple of years will test a lot of us in ways that we don't understand yet. And I do think that it's worth a little bit of brain power thinking about what are you going to do to help yourself, stay steady, balanced, whatever it is that you're trying to maintain. Because I do think there's some of that coming. And I think it happens every day. It doesn't have to be large scale, like national level stuff. It could just be anything. If you're struggling at work, if you're struggling with stuff with your kids, like whatever it is, I think there's a lot of ways that you can feel powerless. And it's worth some time thinking about like, what's your strategy? What do you know about yourself? And how do you support it?
Yeah. And it's how you know yourself. That's a very good point. It's how you know yourself. This is how I know me. And I know, I get slightly subversive. I don't like it when people tell me I can't do something. And I don't like it when people tell me I have no power. I don't like it. And I don't like, I don't like it for multiple reasons. One, it's mean. So don't do that. That's mean. But then also it gets into people's heads. And then you have to I have this theory. Okay, I have the onion theory. Okay. Okay. So, the onion is the core of the onion is you, right? And then you've got all these layers, and these are the layers that are presented to the world. And for some folks, you got to go through a lot of layers to figure out who they are. And my objective through life is to have very thin layers. So I always felt like those were ways in which you always had those layers are what help present that the drama you have with folks, the difficult times you have communicating with people, being able to understand each other one-on-one is because you have to go through all of these layers. And those layers get built up for many, many reasons, and not because people are maybe some people are trying to build them up, but sometimes it's just life builds up those layers. So I always tried very hard to have as many or as little layers as possible. So when I do have communications with people, that it's not so contentious, but and difficult. And I had a point to all of that. But I think what I was trying to say was, we all have our different ways of doing this and the way that we handle it. And I think in my effort to have that little bit of layers, such few layers that, I'm constantly on this, in what ways am I failing? In what ways am I not doing right? In what ways am I not presenting myself so that other people can, have authentic communication with me? How smart that is, how healthy that is, I don't know. Maybe it's not great, but it's how I cope.
If it works for you, then it works for you, right?
Yeah.
That's how so many things are. If it works for you, that's what matters.
Yeah. But
totally. I feel like I can hear some of your HVAC people.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear people.
Okay. Sorry, they're in the hallway. I hate sometimes my brain works this way. So I did read a book this week. Ooh, I read a book. It's called Black Pilled. It was really interesting. And it was about how the dark side of the internet helps spark, a lot of the political unrest that we have right now. And so essentially it was, who wrote it, and I forgot the name of the person who wrote it, and I don't have it with me, and I think that's bad podcast etiquette. But the lady who wrote it is a reporter. She started off with Vice, I think, and then went on to CNN, but I might be wrong on that. Anyway, so what she did is she just befriended all of these right-wing, alt-right, Nazi sympathizers, all these folks on 4chan and 8chan and all of that. And so she tried to get a good bead on their thought process and how that impacted, our politics. What's interesting is the guy who started 8chan, his name's Fred Brandon, I think it was. I might be getting that wrong. He has a disability. And a lot of these folks that are on these sites are like autistic, are on the spectrum. And it was interesting because she would ask them questions on like, what got you really involved in all of this? What made you decide, that you were a Nazi sympathizer, or that you were like full on admitting that you're a racist or anything like that. And it was this deep dive in the black pill portion of it was this like deep dive into nihilism. And a lot of times it was like, well, because I hate my dad, or, like very simple reasons as to why they decided to do this. Like there was no big, no complicated thing. It was like, I don't like my dad, or I didn't like school, or I hated math, or something like that. And it was just an overreaction to whatever it was that made them feel powerless. This is how they responded. And these guys responded so extreme that had a major impact on like our politics right now. And it's a really interesting book. But now that I think about it, that's the, I think I mentioned it to you guys in a
Elle
text.
Reeve.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. And that's, I think I mentioned it to you guys about how like the shadow side of like being your own hero, and that sense of feeling powerless. Like we can respond in the positive, but sometimes people respond in such a way that, it takes a dark turn and has a significant impact. Because she talks about, she was there during Charlottesville. She was there at January 6th. Mm-hmm. She was there. Yeah, it was, she was befriended. Can you hear the vacuum?
A little bit.
You can't hear it a little bit? Okay.
Yeah, a little.
See if I can get that taken out. But and it was really interesting. And so maybe we'll have another podcast on it, talk about like kind of the shadow side of that. But, there's a lot of coping mechanisms, but I think you guys mentioned a little bit before, Bex, is about like character and grit, but it's where you find your community too. Mm-hmm. And for some of these folks, that's where they found their community, and being part of that community was just like the most important thing. And they didn't want to tear themselves away from that community because it gave them support. And that's what gave them, the resiliency to overcome their sense of powerlessness. So
even if it is for bad.
What I love, I don't love this, but what I find so fascinating is that, and this is where I'm the dark person in the group. So I'm sorry, you guys, but there's always like, we think about these things and how they're very, we think about them in a positive way, but sometimes there's, they manifest themselves in many different ways, not just positive ways, not just negative ways, but in neutral ways. And I mean, it's just another element and another side of all of this, but I also think it's important to talk about. So, we don't have any more 8chan in Charlottesville in January 6th.
But, I think that there's people out there that don't have community or feel like there's no one that has reached out to them, and maybe they have nobody. And so when somebody does show up, no matter who it is, and says, hey, like, I care about you, or shows anything like that's a lot. Like that feels like, wow, this person cares about me. And sometimes like what they end up doing, like they don't care too much about because they have that attention, or this person's given me the ability to not feel powerless, or I finally feel like I matter. And I don't know, maybe it's because we're not reaching out to those people, or somebody that is a positive role model or has a positive or helpful mission that they have. I mean, we kind of there's this space where people have filled it for them, and so then they take them and do something else. And I think we need to have like more positive role models out there, and people, and trying to reach out to people that maybe don't reach out to us, because we expect people to come to us and to say, hey, I need help with this, or hey, can we hang out, can we do this, but we're not reaching out to others and people that are different from us. And I think the shift in the last like decade also, in of course looking at different groups that may not like have normally been highlighted or given some attention, and I'm just talking about like immigrant groups, LGBTQ, those marginalized groups. And I think there was an element that took advantage of that shift, because then they're saying like, look, they don't care about you, we care about you. And so that's probably what ended up feeding some of this. And I'm sure that the book that you're reading probably talks about that. Maybe there's an element that highlights a little bit of that. And it's all this social media as well. Like, just there's a way now to reach people that have never been reached before, to share messages much wider and farther. And so that's something that tool that was used, but I think we can use it for some good. So like what we're doing right now with this podcast, and more that I think we'll be able to do. And I think we need to be in these spaces and not let others take it over and use it for their own means, because that's kind of how we got to where we're at today, taking advantage of all that and using it for their own taking. So,
well, I apologize. I didn't mean to like bring the vibe down. I just thought it
no.
was really interesting. And I mean, just as you said, it's it's an opportunity to, I mean, again, knowing that that's something that exists, and that's a way that can be. I don't know. I'm rambling, but
well, no, I think it's important. What you're highlighting, what both of you are sort of speaking to, is that when people are fortifying themselves against feeling powerless, that can go either way. That can go like, yeah, you persevered and you did something positive or pro-social, or you succumbed to a really scary narrative or fell in with a group that is really like not good for society or for human rights.
yeah,
There's ways that can go awry, and it's really important that we acknowledge that and talk about, like, when we think about fortifying, you want to fortify yourself for the good, and also against anything that might take you down a path that ends with you arrested, with you like a part of a, some might suggest a cult or, like a really dangerous group that's involved in criminal activity and things that can impact your life and your ability to be a free human. And so I think it's really good that we acknowledge and talk about both, because that's the world that we live in. It doesn't always go for the positive. So
yeah. And then the gist of it, I mean, with calling it black pilled, is that these people have embraced a specific sort of, have embraced nihilism, and
can you
that's what
define that for people, in case folks don't know what nihilism means? Because I'm
For
not sure
me,
I'm
if
gonna
to understand it.
like very poorly define it,
Okay.
very poorly, because I don't fully understand it. Um, it's sort of like succumbing to this inevitability of like how shitty it is. Like, it's just the inevitability that we're all gonna die, we're all miserable, and again, I'm very, very poorly defining it. Okay, I'm not doing a good job of it, but that's
maybe
essentially.
we should like pull it up and like add it to part of the video. I mean, I have the Google like definition of
Yeah,
it.
define
You want me
it.
to read it? Not.
I mean, I have like a general I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm not going to define it because I'm not a scientist or anything. I mean, I'm not a political scientist or a sociologist or anything like that. But I mean, it's just you succumb to this sort of, it's all awful anyways. So why bother? But again, I'll let you read.
Okay. Nihilism is a philosophical perspective that denies the existence of inherent meaning, value, or purpose in life. It can manifest in various forms, including existential nihilism, which rejects the idea of an objective meaning to existence, and moral nihilism, which denies the existence of objective moral values.
Whew.
Yeah.
That's dark shit. I'm gonna go ahead and say that. That's some dark shit.
Yeah. But I worry about that now. Like with everything that's going on, like, I mean, I'm glad that you asked this question, how you fortify yourself, and we kind of kept it positive, but except for me. But
No.
I don't think we need to, though. I don't think we'd be doing a service to people.
Positive,
yeah, but I mean, but that's my point. It's like, I feel like that's the scary part of what's going on now. And I think the book, like, was excellent in pointing that out, that, when you start to feel powerless, your brain does go into that area where it's like, why bother? Why even try? Why it doesn't matter? I'm going to die anyways. Yeah. What's that? Remember that meme I sent you guys? That is like, we die at the end, so F them. Remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
Did I send that to you, Tomas? So there's this like, it was like an Instagram post or something like this, and this gal goes through like all these different scenarios, and one's like, you die at the end of this, so F them, and it's like, we laugh about it here because I sent it to Dennis too. He thought it was funny, but it's kind of like that. I'm like, you die at the end, so I mean, but there's multiple ways to interpret that, right? Like, you die at the end, so go for it, or you die at the end, so why bother? Like, it's just, it's I don't know. Anyway, it's like
really
a guide
about where you take it, right? Yeah. It's really about your headspace, and like we've talked about, your resiliency. Your outlook, your hope, the people around you, your sense of, beyond this, what does the future look like? And is that something that is appealing to me? Yeah. And I hope that something that we can do through this podcast is let people know, yes, the future has hope. Like, shit is not hopeless. There are people out here in this world doing the darn thing. Build it back on that one. And we should all like lift them up and look to that as like, okay, things get dark. We all acknowledge times get dark. We feel dark. Things are not always amazing, but the future is hopeful. So one of the other segments that we had wanted to do for you guys, we're calling I Need a Hero. And no, I'm not going to sing because we don't want copyright infringements. But this is this is a funny story that happened to me, and we'll see if you guys have any funny stories to share. So yesterday I'm doing laundry, and I do laundry and I put all my load in. Now my dryer, speaking of stuff that's not made like it used to be, for whatever reason, it never dries things completely. I don't know why that is. It's so frustrating. I will put stuff in there and it'll say that it's dry. It's got a dry sensor, and then I go to get it out and it's still damp. And I think, ooh, that's so frustrating. That happened yesterday. So I say, okay. So I crank it up. Now I'm thinking, it's funny because when you say, because mine gives an option where it's like normal dry, very dry, and then something else or something like that. So I put it all the way up. I'm thinking that just means it's going to keep going. No, what that means is it's going to get hotter. And so, okay, so I go to pull my laundry out. And for all you folks out there who wear bras, maybe this has happened to you before, I don't know. I pull my bra out and it is melted. And I'm like, no.
What part's melted?
There's a part on the band that goes around the back that's, I guess, got some, I guess maybe it's non-slip stuff. How they do that in some bras now. Folks who wear bras will understand this. And so it's melted and all deformed. And I'm like, cool, that's a quick $70. Because for many people out there in the world, y'all don't know how much bras be costing. They are expensive. $70.
And what?
I said I did.
It doesn't matter what size you are either. Doesn't matter what size you are.
I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, wow, that sucks. So the dryer like jacks up, my dryer's not working, so it jacks up my bra, and then I got to go buy a new bra. And then I just thought, I had this like random thought that came into my head, and I was like, why are we trying to go to Mars? We still don't have good bras for women. Like, I don't understand. Like, half or maybe more than half the population wears bras.
Mhm.
And I think if you asked any woman, do you like the bras that you own?
No.
Most women are going to be like, no, they don't fit right. There's a problem. This is
It's
uncomfortable.
a stupid design. Yes.
My thought was just like, seriously, people are investing large sums of money
Yeah.
trying to go to Mars to like set up habitats up there so we could live there. We don't have bras figured out. Maybe we dial it back. We make bras our priority as a nation. Maybe we could like be the people who invent bras that actually fit and people like and that don't cost $70.
I was about to say cheaper would be better.
Yes,
At least it would be a
cheaper.
start.
Yes, so many things. Maybe ones that don't melt in case your new age dryer just says, oh, let me just crank it up. I need a hero. I need someone to tackle this. And I know there people are going to say, oh, this company does, and I like this company. I hear you, but also, I don't know. I feel like most people who wear bras would say, yeah, like maybe when you buy it, but they go out of shape really quick and then you can't wash them. And if you wash them, you have to hand dry them or hand wash them, which who has time for that?
No.
I don't know these people. No one has time for that.
And they're not made nearly as well as they used to be. They're not at all. Like the fabric isn't the same, nothing. So
no, it's all very crazy.
Yes. Well, I hope we find that person. That would be wonderful and lovely.
That's the hero I need. What about you guys? Do you guys need a hero?
No.
Better representative, better.
Coming in with the real stuff then. Okay, I take your point. None of this bra talk.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and go out there and be your own damn hero.
Yeah.
And you can hear the workers in the background.